Hello and welcome back to this interview series where I sit down with our Pronto experts and delve deep into their roles and experiences. Today, we have a special episode lined up. While Sabrina and I share the same workplace, our paths, roles, and departments are quite different. It's quite interesting how we can be part of the same company, yet know so little about each other. So I'm genuinely excited to finally sit down with Sabrina and dive deep into her experience and her role. So, hi, Sabrina, and welcome to this episode.
Hi, Mateo. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's a pleasure. Let's just dive into my first question for you.
Okay.
Being a website production manager is a multifaceted role, especially in a dynamic company like ours at Pronto. So, Sabrina, I'm really curious to know what does a typical day look like for you as a website production manager at Pronto?
Well, every day is different, and that's good. It keeps things exciting, it keeps things fresh. But on a usual basis, it's checking in with our project timelines and deliverables just to make sure that everything's on track. There's a bit of conflict resolution or like acting as an escalation point in case projects have gone outside of the scope or are not meeting our clients' expectations. Then there's some delegation of tasks, assigning work to different team members. And then as a manager, there's the usual one on one sessions with direct reports. But all in all, a lot of problem solving as well, which is something that I particularly enjoy, like solving complex problems and also helping others do the same.
Interesting. Uh, with all these sort of responsibilities, how do you make sure nothing really falls through the cracks? Because it seems like there's so many things going on in your day to day.
Yeah, to be honest, like I had a conversation about this with a colleague on Friday. Sometimes I'll talk to somebody about something and then I'm like, oh, I need to bring that up with somebody else. And then I put a task on it for myself on Asana, but I don't put a description. So I forget what it was about. So I'm trying to do a better job of doing that as well. But it's just jotting a lot of things down when things come to mind. And Asana really helps with that, honestly.
Yeah, Asana is a very powerful tool, and we've started using it company wide just recently, maybe a couple months ago or so.
Yeah.
And I guess it's really more of a habit of deciding this is my go-to project management tool, which becomes almost like a to-do list at the end of the day for everyone.
Yeah.
Um, and I got for personally, I don't know about you, but it took me a little bit to just get used to opening it up every morning and go through my list of tasks, triage my tasks, and make sure that I'm on track with every deliverable and every project uh, I have assigned to me. Before I had my entire desk filled with post-it notes, but
Yeah.
I think
Same.
yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
it's definitely I think it's helped a lot. Like you said, like I used to have post-its note like on my laptop, on the desk everywhere. And it's just started to like keep my life in track. And I know a couple of people who even use it for their personal life as well. So
Mhm.
instead of just jotting things down on your phone, just put it in a Asana.
Oh yeah, for sure. Um,
Yeah.
Another follow-up to this, related to your role, it seems like your role requires both strategic and hands-on involvement. How do you switch between this mindset through the day?
I think it's just very task related. Like you'd have to have a mindset where you would have to be able to switch between those two very easily. And I don't think it's a thing that can be learned. It's just like an intuitive thing that you'd have to kind of have already. So yeah, that's how I usually deal with that.
Interesting. And maybe another thing it would be curious for our listeners to know is how many people are in your team and how many people generally are managing at the same time?
I am managing 6 people, but our production team consists of, I want to say 20, but I'd have to do the exact count again.
And what type of roles are in this sort of in this team?
So we have writers, designers, developers, and project managers. And then we have the functional teams managers. So the designers managers, the writers managers, and then the developers managers.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I would say it's impressive how projects come together when there are so many hands and minds involved. And given the range of different specialists that you oversee, um, what strategies do you employ to ensure, a seamless communication and collaboration across these different roles?
Well, since COVID, we've reshaped ourselves to a hybrid workplace, right? And our production team consists of people from different functions, like we've already said. So, developers, designers, writers, and project managers. So, with managing a cross functional team, I think the most important thing is effective communication. So we have a couple of strategies to ensure that the usual one is the stand up meetings. So that just allows everybody to speak about what they're working on that week and if they're experiencing any issues with any projects, so that we can come up with solutions together. This also helps strengthen the team dynamics overall. Another thing is having clearly defined goals for each functional team so that we're working towards a common goal. And we try and make sure that those goals, like from each functional team, are aligned with each other to a certain extent so that we're heading in the same direction. We also undergo some challenges recently. On Friday, we did a challenge called Build a Website in a Day challenge, which is exactly what it sounds like. We built a website in a day. So the goal of this was to get people out of the mindset of having to do the tasks that are on hand, and having to just focus what's right in front of you and having to get them to think about more big picture items. So it was actually really interesting and fun, and we learned a lot about how we do things and how we can do things differently while still maintaining the standards that our clients are used to.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's clear that fostering open communication is key, and I love the idea of stand-up meetings to bridge any gaps there may be,
Yeah.
and generally ensuring everyone is on the same page, regardless of their role, is essential. Um, with such a diverse team, Sabrina, I imagine you'd come across some really interesting ideas and perspective as well. Can you maybe share a memorable moment or some time where this diversity led to a unique solution?
Sorry, what do you mean?
I mean, just by having people with different backgrounds,
Hmm.
has there ever been a time where having everyone on the same in the same room in the same call led to some interesting development, interesting ideas that then got implemented as part of those discussions?
Um, I would say the most interesting thing was the challenge that we went through, the build a website in a day. We got everybody in the office on the same day. We started working towards for the same thing, and we started to get results and started to think about our processes and how we can do things differently. So it was interesting to have to see everybody have a different mindset to how we do things, because it's a lot, like our work is very process driven. Like
Hmm.
you barely think outside of the lines and barely think about, oh, how can I do this better? So it was very interesting to see that.
Very interesting. And just to continue on the same line of managing a team of diverse people, have you ever come across situations where you had to handle disagreement with your team? And if yes, how do you handle that type of disagreement?
um I have fortunately never been in that position, and um I don't know if what's going to occur in the future, but yeah, I'm lucky to say that we've never had conflicts within our team as far as I have been managing it. So
That's
yeah,
great. Wow,
yeah,
it's great to hear. Nice.
yeah.
Cool. So one of the challenges many people often talk about is balancing quality with time and budget. So given in your position, I wonder how or whether you can share with us how you manage the end-to-end execution of website projects, especially in terms of meeting timelines, budgetary constraints, and the quality standards that you set yourself to meet.
Yeah, sure. So the first step we take when any project comes in is we run an internal kickoff meeting. So we discuss the client's timeline, their quote, their onboarding information, and then any questions that might arise from any team members on something that they need clarification on. So sharing the quote and the deliverables with all team members basically keeps us all accountable. Or if something is going outside of the scope, we can catch it very easily. Like we said, we've also recently switched to using Asana. For years, we were using Trello, which was very limited in so many ways. One thing Asana really helped us with is keeping track of the timeline. So it's a great tool that keeps everybody accountable for their tasks. And it even allows us to assign tasks to our clients as well and corresponding due dates, which can help keep the project on track for launch. With regards to maintaining quality standards, we actually have two QC stages. So, one before the site gets sent to the client for review, and then they do the usual review process. Once it's launched, we have our second QC stage. So, this is just to make sure that we're covering our bases and that there's no errors or anything that we might have missed. To be honest, when it comes to budgeting and setting the right price with what our clients are looking for, that's something that we haven't been particularly good at in the past. But the recent move to Asana has allowed us to do a better job of tracking the time spent on all projects so that we're allocating our resources effectively.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear about those checks and balances in place, ensuring that projects not only meet deadlines, but also maintain the highest quality standards. And with the two QC stages that you have in place, I'm curious to know whether the same people are responsible for those QC stages or whether you have different sets of people looking through the project at different times so that two separate sets of eyes kind of can spot different things or not.
Yeah. So the first step of the QC stage is actually me and the project manager. So we look through the entire site, we look through the content, we compare the original content documents with the actual site just to make sure that everything is aligned. The SEO titles, meta descriptions, everything has been added. The second QC stage actually consists of a bunch of people of Pronto, and we randomly go in whenever somebody has time. They will leave their comments or feedback whenever they spot something. So it's always different people on different projects. So it is like a fresh set of eyes every time.
Yeah, that's nice. Great. And one last question still about meeting deadlines. When you're up against a tight deadline, but still want to maintain quality, what's your go-to strategy, if any?
Um, I would say that regardless of what we do, whether it's in a rush or not, the QC needs to be set in place. And
Mhm.
that's the thing that makes sure that we send a good website to our clients. Even though we're in a rush, that has to happen regardless. So I would say that's the thing that we would have to make sure is set in place.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, this leads me to my next question, which is related to client satisfaction. I mean, client satisfaction is the end game for all of us at Pronto, but that journey can sometimes be I would say, a delicate dance. And from your experience, when it comes to client management, how do you ensure their expectations align with the project scope and deliverables?
Um, So, like I said, every project we start off with a kickoff meeting. We discuss the client's vision, what they have in mind, and just to make sure that everyone is aware of that vision. After that, our project managers will meet with the clients and set mutually agreed upon goals for the project just to make sure that we're on the same page. Like, we're not expecting everything to go perfectly in a project. You know, people are allowed to change their minds, but our project managers do a good job of communicating with our clients that changing plans will result in delays. And we also set expectations in the way we work. Our project manager communicates our process to our clients, and the project board on Asana actually contains a bunch of information and resources about how we work so the clients can know what to expect from us.
Mhm.
If there are any discrepancies between the scope and the expectations, we'll be honest with our clients and let them know that there are certain tasks that they've asked for that are not within the initial agreement. So, yeah, there are roadblocks and setbacks in most, if not all, projects. But what we're responsible for is to make sure that the ship is steered in the right direction and remains on track for the final destination.
Nice. I love that quote. It's great to hear that feedback and revisions are integral to the process. It ensures that the final product is in line with the client's expectations. But there are also instances, I imagine, where a client's vision evolves midway through a project. How do you handle such shifts with keeping everything on track?
So, if it's a vision that's being completely transformed, we try and steer away from that. But if it's minor changes that they're asking for and it still goes in with the recommendations that we've set with the clients, and that's something that we're happy to do. So yeah, it just depends on the client and their project, I would say.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense. Well, that was actually my last question, Sabrina.
Okay,
Thank you
great.
for sharing your experience today. I'm sure
Sure.
our existing and future customers listening to this will have a much clearer idea of what goes on behind the scenes as their websites are being built. So it's been a great pleasure having you on the show today. And to our listeners, remember, stay curious, keep learning, and keep marketing. I'm your host, Mateo. Until next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. That was